What's good, nerds? Joe, aka the Butterfreek, and man, am I excited to bring you my first PMP upload. Super stoked to bring you this. First off, before I get started, I'd like to thank all of you for taking time out of your day to watch my video. Really means a lot. The support is absolutely fantastic. Honestly, it's the reason why I do it. Anyway, let's go ahead and get right into this. I've got a UU battle here. I pulled it from a stream when I was over at Magnitude's house. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. I don't see too many UU battles out there lately, but it's what I was feeling. So looking at his team on the top, I'm looking at the Empoleon Gligar core. It's a pretty rough core to break, so that's something that I really need to keep my eye out on. I'm thinking Clefable is probably specially defensive because it gets paired really well with a physically defensive Gligar as well. I'm thinking maybe the Heracross is choice banded because the Techno Top or the Hitmontop could be a Techno Top because he doesn't need a second defensive wall. But if it is another defensive wall, that's another thing that I really need to break into. If that's the case, he's got 4 offensive walls and 2 potential choice candidates. I say 2 because Heracross is usually choiced, and Rotom Heat having Overheat as its stab move kind of dictates switching out when you use it, so I really always feel like Rotom Heats, I automatically assume they're choice specs, and then secondary choice Scarf. Choice specs Overheat is just too much power to pass up. As you'll see, I do have a Chandelure on my team, so obviously I am from that school of thought. Looking at his team, I have my Choice Specs Chandelure, so I'd love to be able to bait that Overheat out, but if it is a Choice Specs Rotom Heat, I'm going to have issues doing that as most of my team is 2-hit KO by a Thunderbolt. In order to win this match, I think what I'm going to need to do is whittle down that Gligar, take out his Hitmontop, and then I think my Sharpedo is going to be good to go for a sweep. So you'll see that's kind of what I'm going to end up trying to do almost all game while I'm setting up. Anyway, let's go ahead and get right into this now. I'm going to go ahead and lead off with my Frostlass. He's going to lead off with his Rotom. It's a good matchup and a bad matchup for me at the same time. I do have the Focus Sash, so I will be able to scout if he has Choice Scarf or Choice Specs. I'm going to go first and set up a layer of Spikes, which is going to confirm that he is Choice Specs. He goes for a Thunderbolt, does get a crit. Obviously, it's not going to matter. I am a 0, bulk investment Frostlass. And here, I go ahead and go straight for a Destiny Bond, thinking maybe he, doesn't see Frostlass often enough to see it coming, but he makes a really good play, gets a free switch into his Empoleon, and that was a perfect switch on his part. Empoleon oftentimes, especially a defensive version, carries Aqua Jet, and I am too scared to stay in and go for a second layer of Spike, so I go ahead and switch out. He predicts that and goes for a Stealth Rock, effectively kind of like pseudo pursuit trapping my Frostlass here. So, I really didn't want to stay in and just go for the Aqua Jet. I figured worst case scenario, he sets up rocks and I get to have my my Frostlass to scout, a choice lock move on one of his 2 choice candidates. And that's exactly what I do here. He switches out as I go for the rocks, and I'm going to go ahead and use my Frostlass as death fodder to figure out what he locks himself into. He does make the smart play here, and he just goes ahead and goes straight for the Thunderbolt. I say it's a smart play because there's only one thing on my team that actually enjoys taking Thunderbolts, and even then, you'll see my Raikou does not really appreciate a Choice Specs Thunderbolt coming off of, Rotom's decent special attack stat. So he's going to switch out. I predict that. I go for a Volt Switch, want to keep some momentum going. I think that the switch into Gligar, is a little, you can't do that yet. Now that he knows that I have Volt Switch, it's pretty obvious that I'm choice locked, so, switching into Gligar is something that's a little more viable. The reason why it wasn't viable before was because I could have been that sub-calm mindset. I figure this Clefable's probably got Encore, because it's specially defensive, and he didn't, assume choice, so that's why he went into that. And you'll see here, I just go off, and I know the close combat was super obvious, but like I said, one of the things that I'm going to need to be able to do is just get some chip damage onto his defensive core. I have Earthquake for his Empoleon, and I've got Stab Waterfall for the rest of his core on my Sharpedo. If I can go ahead and get some sort of damage on this Gligar, I think that I will be able to switch in my Sharpedo at some point and really just start sweeping. So that's why I'm kind of making these obvious plays here, just getting damage on his core. I go into my Bronzong here. It's pretty much the only thing that appreciates going into a Earthquake on my team. There's a lot of stuff on my team that doesn't appreciate Earthquake, and you'll see that I am petrified of Earthquake being on a Heracross. I go ahead and just go straight into my Raikou as he goes into his Rotom, mainly because, once again, I don't think he's going to want to get baited into going for an Overheat here, because if at any point he goes for an Overheat and I switch into my Chandelure, Choice Spec Chandelure will legit straight up OHKO anything that he switches in, or 2-hit KO with a Flash Fire Specs Flamethrower. So, he doesn't really want to do that. I go for an obvious Volt Switch again. He makes the nice play and goes into Gligar, and, I kind of like playing a little bit obvious at the beginning of the match because that lets me get really, really ballsy at the end of the match, which is really what, is important. When you have a team and you figured out how you're going to be able to break it down, it's all about breaking it down. So I kind of like making the obvious safe plays to see how people like to predict before I start making the manly plays to try to get myself into a position where I can win. Before you can make those power plays, you need to make sure that they're safe. Because I have figured out that, Sharpedo is the key to my victory in this match. But I can't get overzealous with it because if I do, I'm going to lose my Sharpedo early in the round or early in the match, and there's going to be absolutely nothing that I can do about it. His Clefable shows that it does have Protect, so I'm kind of assuming it's like an Encore, Wish, Protect, and then I don't know, it might not even have a status move, so maybe I shouldn't be scared of it. But, whatever, I go for the HP Ice. It's obvious he's going to be switching out here, and I go into my Bronzong, actually predicting that he was going to be going into his Empoleon, because Empoleon 4 times resists the non-stab HP Ice. So, the reason why I did that, my Bronzong actually has Earthquake, and this is where I said, I just want to get chip damage. He goes for a Scald, and he gets the burn, which is really, really unfortunate. You'll see that my Earthquakes, they weren't going to be doing that much damage even without the burn, but the burn plus Scald, is really going to be racking up on my Bronzong, and especially since I got my leftovers knocked off, and, the Earthquake's doing half damage really stinks. So instead of, potentially winning this duel of Bronzong versus Empoleon, instead I am going to lose it, and he's going to be well over half HP, which, for the most part, kind of sucks. It would have been really nice to win the duel with my Bronzong and have him as death fodder, since he does have two Pokemon that are choice locked, and it's always nice to have death fodder against choice locked Pokemon, especially when one of them is a Heracross and you have a Ghost type. Always nice to switch it in, Scout to double check that he's locking into close combat and then get a free switch. I go into my Sharpedo here a little bit early because I know that I threaten him out with the Earthquake, and again, I just want to get chip damage on. Nothing on his team particularly enjoys a Waterfall, plus I really wanted to find out if this was a defensive Hitmontop, because if it was a Technotop, that means I would need to take it out right away before my Sharpedo could sweep, because he's got the Fake Out and the Mach Punch combo, always going to be able to take out a Sharpedo. If it's a defensive variant, that's actually kind of a better thing for me. That just means I have to deal with the Intimidate, and that worst case scenario, I need to, get even more damage out on to things before my Sharpedo can sweep. I figure it was a safe switch into Chandelure, as I don't think that he's going to have Sucker Punch as a defensive variant, so I just go ahead and go into it. I know that nothing on his team is really going to appreciate this Choice Specs Overheat. Empoleon's a little bit too low after these Spikes and the Stealth Rocks, and really just after that, pretty pathetic duel that Bronzong had with him, and he's easily going to be taken out. So, things are kind of looking good for me. I'm starting to get chip damage on his core here, but this right here, this Heracross really kind of scared the poop out of me all game. I had no idea what it was going to have. It obviously has Dual Stab, but I wasn't sure if it was Dual Stab Pursuit Stone Edge, Dual Stab Pursuit Earthquake, or Dual Stab Quake Edge. I switch out thinking that I don't think he would go for Pursuit, just in case I stayed in and overheated him again. I don't think I would die to the non-stab, non-switch out Pursuit, and I was really hoping that he had Stone Edge rather than Earthquake, and that actually turns out to be the case. However, the fact that he didn't go for Pursuit there, in the back of my mind, makes me think maybe he's dual stab Quake Edge. So I'm still absolutely petrified of this Heracross, as there's nothing on my team that appreciates a powerful Earthquake now that Bronzong is dead. I go ahead and I boost up knowing that he's going to need to switch. I am at +1 after the Intimidate, going to be more than enough to take him out. And here, again, I'm petrified of the Earthquake. Yes, I think the close combat is obvious, but I still can't really switch out into my Chandelure because I need it to punch a couple more holes into his team. So I have to stay in. I have to eat the close combat. It really sucks because Cobalion was at +1 and still had its Lumberry intact. I really wish I didn't have to lose it, but I did. However, that gives me a free switch into my Chandelure, and instead of going for Overheat this time, I just go ahead and go for a Flamethrower. I figured anything on his team was 2-hit KO by a Flamethrower, and I wasn't quite sure if Choice Specs Overheat would OHKO the Clefable. 2 Flamethrowers definitely does more damage than an Overheat, right? I hope that's right, or else I sounded like an idiot. Those Flamethrowers with Choice Specs on a Chandelure, so much power! My god, I've used the Clefable in UU before, and it is absolutely no slouch of a special wall. That Flamethrower did well over 50%. I mean, even after leftovers, this is an easy 2-hit KO. So, Choice Spec Chandelure really doing work here. It's done its job. And you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and pause the battle real quick, and I want to reconvene about what I wanted to do for my strategy to win here. So I said that I needed to kind of weaken his defensive core because before I can sweep with my Sharpedo, I need to weaken his defensive core. However, I'm running into another problem here. This Heracross is still Choice Scarfed. I've figured out that it is Choice Scarfed. It is not Choice Banded. Now, the reason why that is a problem is if he has the Earthquake, I can't switch, and I'm still not sure if he has it, and I'm not sure if he has Pursuit either, although the fact that he's brought it in on my Chandelure here kind of confirms to me that he does have Pursuit, because I think I'm low enough that he could outspeed me and kill me even if I don't switch out, effectively Pursuit locking me. But my problem here is that my Sharpedo does not outspeed his Heracross. I run an Adamant Sharpedo, and I'm assuming this is a Jolly Heracross, so that means I need to get enough chip damage out on this Gligar that I can kill it with a Waterfall, and I need to be able to get speed boosts up so that I can outspeed the Heracross. If I bring it in and he does not switch, my Sharpedo can't just protect in the face of this Heracross and outspeed it. So, I'm kind of starting to figure out that I need to take out this Heracross as well. It's not just his defensive core that I'm going to need to take out before I can start sweeping. So that's my thought process. I'm going to go ahead and let the battle start up one more time. I leave my Chandelure in here, even though the Stone Edge or the Earthquake was pretty obvious, just because I figured, you know what, he may Pursuit lock me in as well. That's not the case. He goes for a Stone Edge. I suppose that's just so, he could Death Fodder it off and maybe get damage on the next thing. However, my Raikou is Choice Scarf, not Choice Specs, so I'm going to be able to kill him with a Hidden Power Ice. I went to that just in case he was predicting the Volt Switch or the Thunderbolt and went into his Gligar. However, I forgot that I have Extra Sensory, and that was actually a really big mistake, because Extra Sensory would have been able to kill this Rotom from here. However, Hidden Power Ice would not. So what's going to happen here is this Rotom is going to be able to kill me with a Thunderbolt, whereas if I had locked myself into Extra Sensory, I would have been able to kill the Heracross, I would have been able to kill the Rotom, and I would have been able to get some pretty okay damage, probably not a terribly large amount, maybe like 20%, onto the Gligar. And this is actually not looking good for me all of a sudden. That was a huge, huge mistake as I figured it out. I thought to myself, alright, I win, I get my Sharpedo in for free, I'm going to get him up with that Life Orb Stab super effective Waterfall, and then I remembered, oh crap, that Gligar roosted before it switched out last time. I don't have that chip damage, which means my Waterfalls are not going to be able to kill. However, I'm going to pause one more time here. However, while my Waterfall did not kill, as you can see, an Earthquake from this point with an uninvested, unevolved Pokemon is not going to be able to kill my Sharpedo from here. While Sharpedo does have defenses weaker than OJ, it still is not going to get me. So he has two choices. He can either go for the Waterfall or go for the Earthquake and hope for a crit, or he can try to Roost Stall my Life Orb down to the point where he would be able to live a Waterfall and kill me after the Life Orb recoil. So that is the choices that he has, which effectively, if he goes for the Roost option rather than the crit option, leaves me with one chance to win. That is going to be a crit or a flinch. 20% chance to flinch, 5% chance to crit, depending on how you look at it mathematically. It could be a 25% chance, it could be slightly less. It turns out he goes for the Roost. I get neither the crit or the flinch. So, working on this second turn, I guess mathematically you could say that I have a 37.5% chance that I could pull this off after the second turn, or if you want to look at it independently, I still only have a 25% chance to win here. I go for another Waterfall. If I get a crit or if I get a flinch, I win, and things actually end up working out in my favor. I do get a flinch. I'm going to go for a Waterfall in the next turn, and that is going to be an insanely close 1-0, because if I did not get that flinch, he definitely would have killed me with an Earthquake there, leaving him with an incredibly close 1-0 on his side. It was a really well-fought battle, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, please leave a thumbs up to let me know that I should upload here again and you liked the way that I narrate. If you didn't like it, please leave a thumbs down to let me know, you know what, we just don't like your stuff. Also, if you liked me, go ahead and check me out at my channel. I try to upload similar things. I also upload, some less serious battles as well, and I'm going to be getting into TCGO. So yeah, thank you for taking time out of your day once again to watch this video, and I hope you guys have a beautiful day.